This to make it 28-3. Arthur Blank loving it. Up by 25. Toss to White. He's in. What a comeback.
All right, you are listening to the 28-3 podcast. I'm here with Max and Nick, and I'm Corey. And this is episode 7 of the podcast. We want to give a special thanks to Roman Harper for joining us for the last podcast. I definitely did not have Luke Kuechly sweaty dancing, line dancing on my bingo card last time, but he gave us a bunch of good insight on the draft. So if you want to listen to that, go to the last episode. What we're doing for the next couple episodes is doing the, call it State of the Saints, post-draft, pre-OTAs. This episode, we're going to talk about offensive fits, are there any more needs? We won't bury the lead here. Speaking of needs, we are recording on Wednesday. Today, the Saints did sign Foster Moreau, former LSU Tiger, former Jesuit Blue Jay, to the squad, which seems to fill a possible void, especially the tight end spot. Max, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the Foster Moreau signing is a real good signing. We've talked about it off air multiple times about how we needed another tight end to pair up with Juwan Johnson. You know, I think we've established that Juwan Johnson's a really good number 2 tight end. I just like the idea of pairing him up with someone with some actual production in the NFL as well. Also, Foster, local kid, LSU, Jesuit High School. You know, we're all former Blue Jays, so I think we have a soft spot in our heart for him.
Got my shirt on tonight.
Yeah, you do. You're represented, man. I'm surprised that thing still fits.
I might be the same weight I was in high school, but it's a different kind of 190.
Yeah, that's probably true for all of us, except for Nick. But no, man, the Foster Moreau signing, it's I'm very excited about that. You know, he's been one of those guys that's been on the radar for the last couple of years. It's funny, whenever I play Madden, you know, he pops up as a free agent in usually year 2 or 3 of my franchise, and I always go sign him. So, no, I'm excited about this move.
Yeah, I think what we discussed mostly was how Juwan Johnson is a very one-dimensional type of tight end. He's a playmaking tight end. In the run game, he's a non-factor. I think Foster, you know, at least gives us that true tight end that, you know, has a skill set in both areas. You know, we needed someone who can actually run block at the tight end position, and I think we solved it. I think his production when Waller went out last year was pretty impressive. I kind of felt he was going to get a bigger contract than he got, and, you know, I think we're pretty fortunate to get him for what we got him for.
Yeah, I think when he was with the Raiders, it was, is he being overshadowed by Waller, or is he correctly sitting second fiddle to Waller? But like you said, Nick, I think once he had the opportunity to show what he could do, he turned a lot of heads, showed that he's 2-dimensional, he can catch and block. And I think, like Max said, it was really the only position left after the draft. I mean, thank God we got rid of Adam Troutman. I was ready.
Man, do not even get me started on that.
It was almost like, at least he didn't shake out like Josh Hill did. I couldn't believe how long that guy lasted on the Saints. But my point is,
at least we didn't give up 4 picks for Josh Hill.
Yeah, I will go way too long on that. My point is, the draft presented a situation where it was like, it made us ask, are we really not going to do anything about tight end? And so I think that was answered today.
Yeah, I think we also talked about how for them to trade Troutman like that, whether we like him or not, said that they had good news on Foster, because there's no way they go down to...
It was a good sign.
Yeah. We knew something was going to happen. We even said they must know they're going to sign Foster, and the medical, diagnosis must have improved. They had to have a plan before trading Troutman like that on draft day.
Yeah.
So I think it was a good move.
I'll say this about Troutman. That trade is potentially one of my favorite trades in Saints history. Not only do we bring in a prospect that I was high on in A.T. Perry, but we also ship off Troutman. And then there's a possibility that if Perry shows out in training camp, Traquan Smith might get knocked off the team. So this is potentially one of the biggest trades, in my opinion. And obviously, we're going to see what happens, but I'm liking the potential of it so far.
I like Max's acknowledgement of it's the little things that matter.
It is. I'm easily pleased when it comes to tight end, and just give me the scrubs off of the team.
And back to the playing behind Waller. Waller's an elite tight end in the league. Playing behind him is not a negative.
That's a good point.
It's just waiting for your opportunity, I think, which he did. And I think he had a great second half of the season last year with Waller being out. So hopefully you can do that for us and play the same way. And, I think it fills the biggest glaring need for sure.
Well, the other factor to look at is surround Derek Carr with as many weapons as possible, and the fact that we got someone he's familiar with already. He and Foster shouldn't have to. It shouldn't take them too much time to get on the same page. They should be able to hit it running pretty quickly in training camp.
That's a good point, because I would have liked the signing regardless of who our quarterback was. The fact that we are signing him to his old quarterback is just even better.
Yeah, love it.
I think we're good on the tight end position. Obviously, there's a bunch of different.
One more quick question. One more thing. Does he start or does Juwan start at that?
Man, that's tough, and that's a really good question. I was thinking about that today after the signing got announced. I think you're going to see a lot of 2 tight end sets.
Yeah.
Now it really opens it up. Before the signing, I was thinking you were going to see a lot more 3 receiver sets on the offense this year, just because we really didn't have any depth at tight end. Yeah. Taysom's not a true tight end. They still. He's a true slash player in the Cordell Stewart vein. You see him line up in the backfield, I guess more as an H-back than a true tight end. So I think this signing really opens things up. You're going to see Foster and Juwan Johnson on the field at the same time, which will open things up for the guys. If it's me, I'm starting Foster. If he's 100% healthy, because he's a true tight end. He's a complete tight end.
I agree.
I think the question really, because you hear a lot of pro analysts talk about this. A lot of fans and a lot of people get hung up on the term starter. But in the NFL, you might have a different group come out for the first play of the game, every game of the schedule, because starter really just means who's out there for the first snap of the game. I think the better question, not better, but like the more pressing question is, who do we think is going to end up being a larger contributor, a bigger factor towards the overall success of the offense?
That's a good point. That's a real good point.
I think that's Foster, because he can do more things. But the interesting part, why I said the question is, Juwan makes roughly twice as much after the new contracts for both of them. So, but he's a skill player. He's not a true tight end, in my opinion. The question is, Max was talking about a 2 tight end set. If we go to a 2 tight end set, who's off the field? What's more valuable, having Shaheed out there or having Juwan and Foster out there, or taking Kamara off the field and go 2 tight ends with Juwan in the slot and basically a 4 receiver, 1 tight end set? I mean, there's a million things we can do with these set of skill players, which, since we're coming out of tight end and talking about wide receiver, Juwan to me is the bridge of those 2 positions. Yep. He can come in, he can play a receiver slot position. We talked a little bit about, I felt he had a very low version of a Kelsey type of skill set, and he can play in that slot and probably eat. And if you put Thomas on the other side in the slot, it's very difficult for defenses to deal with.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, Max brings up a good point about 2 tight ends. When I think of 2 tight ends, I look back to actually the 2009 year when you saw a lot of Shockey and David Thomas. And the reason we were able to run 2 tight end sets, one of the benefits of it is that it keeps the defense honest. It gives you another blocker. But it's damn near impossible, at least from what I've seen, to run a 2 tight end set if you don't have a dominant number 1 receiver. So I think the success of Michael Thomas will be critical to whether or not we are consistently running a 2 tight end set. Because if you've got that wide, consistent number 1, that if you have less agile receiving threats in the 2 tight end set in a play action situation, you can have that outlet to Michael Thomas.
Well, let me ask you this. So you're saying Michael Thomas. So you are penciling in Michael Thomas as the number 1 receiver.
If he's healthy, 100%.
Okay, see, I'm not there yet. I think you got to call Olave the number 1 until proven otherwise. Michael Thomas in the past 3 years, I mean, how many games has he played, since that week 1 game against the Bucks where Peyton left him in the game during garbage time and he got hurt. And his whole career basically got derailed at that point. I don't trust him yet to stay healthy the whole season. So, until proven otherwise, I think you got to say Olave is your number 1 receiver.
I don't trust him to be healthy, but he's the definitive number 1 if he is on the field.
And I think to back that up just a little bit, I think I'm thinking about it situationally. If you're talking, because we were talking about a 2 tight end set. If you have a 2 tight end set, you need a guy like Michael Thomas to have that balance or that threat in the event you run a play action and want to kick it out wide. I think the other factor in this is that what we were saying about whether or not we run both Juwan and Foster out on the field at the same time is contingent upon the success. And when we say success, I guess we're also talking about health of Michael Thomas. Because if Thomas is down and our 1 is Olave and our 2 is Shaheed or where am I blanking? But
well,
that's
A.T. Perry,
that's your 4. You going A.T. Perry 4?
But if you're rolling out the short guys as your best wide receivers, then I don't know how many 2 tight end sets you're going to be able to run. And that's the only situational point. Now, I think the question of is MT trustworthy as the 1 versus Olave, I think that's a completely different story, which might be a good
you're
segue.
Just talking about health. If MT's available, he's the 1. There's
but
no
I don't know
question.
I don't know if Max is convinced on that, which might be a good segue into our wide receiver position group.
Yeah, I'm not convinced, to be honest with you. I think at this point in his career...
Pause real quick. If healthy, you're saying you don't think he's the 1.
But here's
We're
the
assuming
thing.
health.
That's a big if, man.
Yeah, no, I get that. Of course it is. But if he's healthy, if he's in the game, is he not the number 1 receiver?
Remember we talk about movies?
In theory, he should be.
Yeah.
But
Biff from Back to the Future comes and gives you the almanac.
wait, you've actually seen it?
I've seen that, yes.
Holy shit.
And he gives you the almanac, and you open it up, and it says, in 2023, Michael Thomas plays every single regular season game. What is your opinion about who the number 1 is?
I'll be honest with you. I think it's closer than y'all think. I don't think it's a slam dunk that Thomas completely outperforms Olave. I think you see similar numbers. I think Olave has a higher yards per catch. But I think Thomas would have more TDs, but I think it's pretty neck and neck, like a 1A, 1B thing.
I'm not talking about production, but what I'm saying is coverage is going with Mike day 1. Now, could that change? Sure. But if he's on the field, I think we underestimate because it's been so long, and I totally get it from the injury standpoint, but it was the offensive player of the year. Mm-hmm. That's the 1 if he's healthy, even if he's not even close to that level. I mean, last year he was producing, but he opens up the field for Olave.
Yeah.
That's the 1, regardless of the production. That the guy who makes it all happen. We've talked about this a million times, like a DeAndre Hopkins. The coverage rolls to Hopkins all the time. Anything anyone else is getting on the field is because he's absorbing so much. Whether he gets all the catches or not, he's still the 1. He's the one creating the problem.
When you keep saying the 1, do you mean he's Saints offense Neo from the Matrix, or do you mean like
he is the 1? Well, he was the 1.
He was the 1. He's not the 1. Well,
they
until
came back
proven otherwise, he's not the 1 yet because it's been 3 years.
They did wait and do that Matrix Resurrections movie.
I didn't see an Olave that supersedes what Mike can do yet. Can he get there? Of course. That's all of our hope, and we all talked about that. One of the biggest things for the Saints offense this year is Olave a top 10 receiver, or is he a very, very, very good NFL receiver?
Top 10.
Does he make the jump?
You mean top 10 in the league?
Yeah.
Well, top 10 on the team would be...
No, I mean like conference, division.
Are we talking a Pro Bowl level player, or are we not? That's where we're at with Olave today. He was a really good player. He was not a Pro Bowl level player.
Right.
Does he make that jump into that top 10 to 12 in the league area? And you can always debate that. There's going to be probably 8 guys in that 8 to 15 range there you're fighting who's the actual top 10.
It's a pretty stacked group league-wide.
Yeah. So does he get there or does he not? Does he equal those guys, or are we sitting with one of the best number 2 receivers in the league, a low-end number 1 like he was last year, or are we getting a Pro Bowl top 10, top 15 definitive, everyone knows it, player? We need him to make that little jump. And the skill set's there. We're talking about, strength, conditioning. He needs to get bigger. He needs to hold on to the tough catches. He needs to stop failing in the biggest moments of the game.
Yep.
When he's good, his route running is elite. He's got so much skill. Is he going to make that jump? That's I think the biggest question in Saints offense. If he makes even a small jump, the offense is loaded skill wise.
I think what you said right there is important. If he makes a small jump, and a small jump is in, I mean, hell, if he makes even one additional clutch catch.
Yeah.
Not that he made any clutch catches, but like if he makes a clutch catch versus the drops that he had. I mean,
I think Thomas is the bigger variable at this point because I don't have any doubt in my mind that Olave, at the bare minimum, will produce what he produced last year. And, we're talking about a small leap, and I don't think that's a big ask. He acknowledged it after the season that he needed to get bigger. He needed to get better at contested catches. He needed to get a little more physical. I would expect him to take the small leap. To me, the bigger question is Thomas, I guess, is he 85% of what he was 3 seasons ago, before he got hurt? If he is, then the Saints offense really unlocks. Olave, to me, I have no doubt in my mind he's going to take a little bit of a step. So he's going to be at least what he was last year.
Let's reframe it a little bit. If he's 85% of he was 3 years ago,
it's amazing.
Do you believe if he's healthy that he would be 85% of what he was? Because I do.
I hope. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. It's been 3 years, man. There have been players that have come to the NFL and been bounced from the NFL in the time that Thomas has been an elite receiver into what he is now.
True. I'm basing it on that first few games of last year where he looked like the same dude.
Oh, he looked amazing.
Well, I base it on an even smaller sample size because the thing I can't get out of my mind, and I remember it like it was yesterday because it was so damn good, is that second half of the Atlanta game when we opened the season. I mean, he looked like a man on fire, a man possessed. Like, I mean, he was just, and was it Trufant he was up against that game?
No, it was AJ Terrell.
That's right, Terrell.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy was good. That's a good cornerback, and Thomas was making him look small. Like, he could have done the thing they do in basketball where they just do that, you too short.
And look,
the whole game. And if that, so my thing,
it was the second half of the game.
It wasn't
that's
the
what I
whole
mean.
game. It was the fourth quarter.
You're right.
Let's be honest. It was
Let's
the
be
fourth
honest, it
quarter.
was
The
the fourth
whole,
quarter.
you're right. The whole second half. I got carried away there. But that second half, man.
No, the glimpses are there. And look, to Nick's point, like if Thomas, let's say Thomas does make it back to what he was, the year he won Offensive Player of the Year, that means this team's in contention for the Super Bowl because that will unlock everything if he turns into that player. But that is a huge ask, in my opinion. He looked amazing in the fourth quarter of the Falcons game last year in Week 1, and I think he had another
He scored in 2
touchdown.
other games. I mean,
Well, he had 2 really good games, I guess you would say. But the thing is, Torrance Small had his 200-yard game at one point.
Okay.
One game doesn't make.
but he's got a history of games.
I know.
It's just
In 3, what has he done in 3 years?
those 4 games. That's what I'm saying. When he was healthy, he looked the same. That's all I'm saying. Now, again, yes, you have to worry about the health, of course.
You have to.
Because he's been hurt 3 straight years. But if he is healthy, I'm fairly confident we're going to see a player that's pretty close to what he was because he showed us that last year. I don't think there's been, there's much worse injuries than the ones he's had. Mm-hmm. So by seeing it last year, I feel it's still there. He didn't struggle at all.
Look, I'm going reverse jinx route here
You hope
because
he gets
I
injured.
hope to hell you are right, and I hope that in 6, 7, 8 months from now, in January, we're talking about the Saints making a deep run into playoffs, and Nick's looking at me saying, "You're a fucking idiot for what you were saying back in May," and I hope you're right. But let's see.
It's all about health.
I want to see it.
My only point is that if he's healthy, he is the one, in my opinion, compared to Olave right now, today, if healthy. If not
That's a big
healthy,
if. That's a huge if.
it's a good thing to have that Olave's there, and we hope he makes that jump to the Pro Bowl player and becomes a top 10, 12 receiver in the league. That's very feasible. That is not a crazy
absolutely.
idea.
Absolutely.
If he was he top 20 this year?
Olave?
Borderline, probably.
Borderline.
If you go look at
It's
the
borderline.
production.
Sure.
His production puts him around there, in between, probably 18 and 25. So can he make that leap and just be better than 8 to 10 other guys in the league? I think it's very feasible that happens.
I think one of the hardest things to do in projecting player performance in the NFL is projecting the rookies to their sophomore year, because you only have that limited sample size in the league. I mean, you can say, well, senior year of college to rookie year, he did this, but really, I mean, the NFL experience is what counts. I will say what's encouraging about Olave is how quickly he picked up on the NFL scheme, the regimen, the schedule, the conditioning. I mean, all the reports on him were, this guy looks smooth, this guy looks polished, he looks like a pro's pro. And so if that's any indication on what might happen into the sophomore year, let's just hope that.
And let's look at the
That's
play
what it
calling when he was in there with Thomas. We featured him because Thomas was taking coverage. Olave was running wild.
I mean, that's hard to say because the sample size is literally like 2 games.
It was 5, right?
Look it up on your phone. You got
When
your phone
was
right next
what
to
were
you.
his best games of the year?
Look it
It
up.
was
You got
definitely
your
the
phone?
first 8.
Well, I mean, my question, Max, is did Torrance Small garner any extra coverage?
No, he didn't, and that's my whole point. He randomly popped up.
What was he, a $5 tie, right?
It is
He's
one
a
of
$5
those-
tie.
It is one of Nick and I's favorite games growing up as a kid because the announcer, was it Tim Green? Mm-hmm. Oh, my God. Immortalized
killed it.
himself and Torrance Small with the tie analogy. He called him, like a $2 tie at the
I
beginning
thought it was
of
a
the game.
$5 tie. I forget who he was comparing him to, but he called him the $5 tie, and he had a 200-yard game. It was hilarious.
Yeah, he ended up with 206 yards, which, during that period of the Saints, it was a rare occurrence to see any skill player go over 200 yards.
We probably had entire games where our offense didn't gain 200 yards.
Yeah, exactly.
He may have been the first Saints receiver to have 200 yards.
I feel like someone else had done it before, but it was the first one in a while.
Danny O'Brien.
You and I were freaking the fuck out. I just know that.
Yeah, it was an awesome game. He had 2
We were
long
scrambling
ones.
for Torrance Small rookies, and
What was that, like 94, 95 probably?
oh man, I'm not
It was awesome.
92, 93, 94, somewhere around there.
Somewhere in there. I don't think he was a rookie when he did that. I think
No,
it
he
his
was. He was like second
year.
or third year.
I'm
Which
glad
I
you
think
brought
we
up
drafted him in 93. No, 92. I think we drafted him in 92.
Yeah, I
He
think
was
you're right.
right in the heart of the 90s kind of player for the
Yeah,
Saints.
not a great era.
No.
Corey was
But
running around in diapers at this point.
I was not in diapers at 10 years old, Max. That was not a thing.
Who was
Can we confirm with Casey?
Yeah, I mean, he may have been.
what year? Who was the quarterback back then?
That was during the Billy Joe era. Billy Joe's.
It was
plural.
before
No,
Billy
it was
Joe's. It was
before
right
Billy
before
Joe.
Billy Joe's. Who was it?
Was it the
Jim
Schuler? Everett?
I think it. No, I think it was after it. Well, maybe
Did
not.
Schuler come
It might have
before?
been Everett. It might have been Everett. Billy Joe's were
they
mid to
pretty
late
good
90s.
years.
95, 96, 97,
Then
somewhere in there.
we had the Kerry Collins experiment.
That was after that.
That was the Vodka Collins era of 6 games?
That was early. He was I love that guy.
Oh, we love Vodka Collins. I mean, he was an alcoholic like us at that point.
No, what was the meme for, like, if one of the first memes was,
I mean,
I'm a drinker with a football problem, or I'm an alcoholic with a football
I
problem.
mean,
something like
I'll
that.
say
It was
this:
awesome.
has a Saints quarterback thrown the ball faster or harder than Kerry Collins yet? Maybe Aaron Brooks.
Kerry Collins was not a bad player.
I mean,
No one's saying
The
that.
dude made
No.
a Super Bowl.
with the Saints,
No,
he was a bad player. But
well,
he
the
threw the
Saints were
ball.
a bad
He had
team
his
also.
issues. He still had his issues at
Of
the point.
course.
Yeah, like
Yes.
agreeing to sign in New Orleans. That was an issue.
Did
But-
he win a national title at Penn State? He was undefeated, right? Penn State.
He was on the immortal Kyle Brady team,
Yeah,
right?
94,
and
94,
Kajana,
right?
Kajana Carter.
Yeah, that crazy good team.
I remember Romeg announcing that dude's name in the dome. It was fucking hilarious. Kajana Kata.
We signed him too. Man, that was a bust.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, I think we've gone off on a little bit of a tangent
But
here.
that's a good
it
one.
was a good
Anything
tangent.
Kerry Collins, I'm here for.
Nothing
That
like a
dude
trip
could
down
drink his
memory
ass
lane
off.
into the 90s when Saved by the Bell and Kerry Collins were the only thing you could see on TV if you wanted. All right, so we were talking about wide receivers. I mean, do we want to address because we're never gonna end the Thomas.
Well, no, we're not. And
Well,
I think we hope that Nick is right. Like the hope, in this room.
Well, I don't know if he'll be healthy. I just think if he
No
is
one
healthy,
does.
he's going to be the same guy.
My
That's what I
hope
think.
is that your reverse jinx is right, because for a minute I was wondering about the comparison of Torrance Small to the former Offensive Player of the Year, but we addressed that. But
Let's
you're
stay-
right. Yeah. So
No, I compared the one game production to the one game production of last year.
okay, good clarification. I'll
Let's
accept it.
pivot to, we were talking about formations. So let's go into running back. With all of these, let's assume again health. You've got 3 receivers that I think every fan thinks should be on the field a lot in Shaheed, Olave, and Mike Thomas.
Yeah.
You've got now 2 tight ends, and then after 6 games, Jamal Williams and Kamara. The
8.
formations are endless with all of those options.
Sure.
You have 3 receivers, 2 tight ends, 2 running backs. You've got 7 skill position players that we all want to see on the field a ton, when there can really only be 5 on the field at the same time.
So Corey made a good point with this. It's about formations. It's not so much who the starter, the quote-unquote starter is, because that's never really been a thing for the Saints. You know, like you guys, we all go to the Saints games, and you see during intros, and they'll have a random person get introduced as a starter, whether it's the fullback who never touches the damn ball. You know, and
Hey,
it really
don't talk bad about fullbacks.
Which one's your favorite?
Well, I mean,
never mind.
Mike Allstott was pretty badass, but yeah.
He was.
Anyways, keep
But
going.
I guess my point is Corey was correct in his assessment that, you know, it doesn't really matter who starts. There's going to be so many substitutions, especially with Pete Carmichael, you know, assuming he's still running, I guess, the remnants of the Sean Payton offense, where it's substitutions, mass substitutions, formations. All these guys are coming in and out, you know, from play to play. So I think to answer what you were saying, you're going to see, I think, every conceivable combination of all of these players that we want to see on the
I
field.
don't think that was a word.
Or better yet, if we don't see multiple conceivable combinations,
Then Carmichael needs to get the fuck.
exactly. Took the words out of my mouth. I mean, because I swear to God,
He's good at.
this is what he's good at.
Yes.
He was not good last year.
He didn't do it last
We
year.
did not have these players.
We had players. I mean, you could still
Now
switch
we
up.
do. Last year's team was awful.
Well, I think having a lower level of personnel due to injury is even more reason to switch up formations. I mean, so you're telling me
insane.
your talent is less,
That's
so
insane.
now I'm going to run predictable shit?
he started featuring Juwan Johnson because that was the best option we had.
But I mean,
Olave fell off a cliff in the second half. Thomas was out.
let me put it this-
Landry was out. Kamara was
Landry
dinged
was
up.
never
missed game.
in, if we're being honest.
True. Kamara was nicked up. He had nothing to work with. With this is going to be super fun for him. I'm telling
Yeah.
you.
I
I'm
hope.
not saying he's a genius, but
No one is.
he was under a guy who that's where he comes from Sean. This kind of stuff with having all these options is going to play out in very interesting stuff for him. Whether it works or not, we'll see. But I can guarantee you there's going to be all sorts of crazy stuff going on. We haven't even talked about Taysom. Taysom's an 8th skill player in this in this group of players that he has to work with as pieces. It's going to look crazy. I'm telling you.
I'm going to say this. I hope you're right for Carmichael's sake and for Dennis Allen's sake. Because if he cannot get production with this group of talent, he needs to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Because
But he hasn't had
there
that.
are no excuses at this point.
Everyone is judging him off a year where they had nothing.
Well-
and a quarterback who has been a journeyman backup for the last 5 years. You can't make a definitive assessment of a coach when everything goes wrong. They held it together. We could have made the playoffs if not for one Tampa game. With what we were working with on offense, that is insane. That team was broken in every position group. Offensive line, defense had injuries, receiver was depleted, running backs were hurt, quarterback we were down to Andy Dalton. It was a complete mess. So you can't make an assessment based on that. Can we complain about situational calls and all that? Absolutely. There were some terrible
will.
ones. No question. That coaching staff held a team that should have fallen to a 5-win team to competing to maybe win the division in a terrible division, mind you, no question. It wasn't a horrible coaching performance. It wasn't great. It was not what the fans made it, where we have to fire the whole thing and get out of here. They deserve to have a chance to play with an actual roster that is NFL worthy. They did not have that last year on offense. There's no question about that.
Here's the only place I'll push back on that. And I'll say, look, obviously, the coaches with the actual playbook and the actual injury and scouting reports, self-scouting reports in their hands, know a shitload more than us, believe it or not. But that
100%.
said, as a fan, and if you're looking to say, why should we be encouraged or why should we not be encouraged? I mean, they always talk about the best teams, when they're fully healthy, can line up however the hell they want and still do whatever the fuck they want against you. And you can't stop them. That's fully healthy teams against another fully healthy team. One team's better, one team's not. So that means, in my mind,
That's
it
rare.
is rare, but as I look at it, that means if you have your full complement, you actually can be less creative. Look at the Miami Dolphins when they ran the Wildcat. They had shit else besides Ronnie Brown and a couple of others on offense. They had a good offensive line, but they had to be creative because they were working with less.
Ronnie Brown's a top 5 pick.
Right, they had him.
We're not talking about crap.
I don't want to get off
that
on
dude. Is a.
It's an example. It's an example. I'm not trying to get off on Ronnie Brown. What I'm saying is, when you have less, that is the time to get more creative. And I saw less creativity out of Carmichael last year, and for me, that is discouraging.
Did you see the ball bouncing off Taysom Hill's head, bouncing off of Callaway's
coming
face,
out of vanilla formations,
wide open? Plays were great.
But I didn't see, and I could go back and look at the games. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just, when you saw Peyton offenses, it didn't matter how healthy we were, how unhealthy we were.
Drew Brees.
Hold on.
Stop.
Hold on.
Stop.
No. Hold
Stop.
on. Nick.
Stop. No.
Nick.
We're not doing that.
Let me
there's
finish.
There's Drew Brees and there's Andy Dalton, dude. We're not doing that.
Yeah, and there's also
We're
Sean
not doing
Payton
that.
and there's Dennis Allen.
True.
And to Corey's point,
let me finish where I was going.
Let me, and I'll jump it back to you after this, but let me just support what Corey was saying. This team, the situational coaching with Carmichael last year was atrocious. There was no creativity. This team freaking ran on first down more than any other team, and there was no creativity. There was none.
So before
pause real quick. Is Alvin Kamara your best player?
Nick, I'm not going there because you just jumped in with the easiest cop out ever, Drew Brees, Andy Dalton.
Yeah,
so let's
bullshit.
Just stop there. What I'm saying is
it's
that
a quarterback league. We're not going to stop there. Drew Brees
no,
is a
but you
vast
have to have
difference.
good coaching.
When you watched a
y'all are
Sean
nuts.
Payton offense, regardless of who was under center, even if it wasn't Drew, if it was Taysom, you saw regimens of individuals coming in and coming out. There was always a different offensive personnel group coming in,
That's
coming
fantastic.
out. But
Nick,
no, hold on. That is not happening under Carmichael, and that's a problem.
That's great. You can say it looks fancy and all that.
No,
When
it's
Peyton
effective.
Was there? It was not effective. That is a false statement. You've done zero research on that. It was ineffective.
Tell me the research you've done on Peyton's offense versus
Breeze's
Carmichael.
last season. When Breeze didn't play, we were a bottom 10 offense. When Breeze played, we were a top 7 offense.
But we at least tried.
We're going for trying?
He
failed.
We got creative with our formations.
Creativity failed because you didn't have players. I don't blame Sean for that a bit. He did not have players. He tried crazy stuff. It's like when Denver tried to use a receiver at quarterback against us. It didn't work. It was creative.
That was being creative.
That was a COVID game.
Out of necessity. No, they had
100%.
They had 0 quarterbacks.
As
on the
is
roster.
using Taysom as a quarterback. That is out of necessity, not out of desire.
No, that's complete. That's
Taysom's a
apples and
quarterback now?
oranges.
Y'all are going on that
Denver
front?
started a wide
I think
receiver.
Peyton versus Dalton.
Hold on. Denver started a wide receiver because every other quarterback had COVID that year.
I understand why it happened.
That's different than Peyton having an obsession with Taysom. That's completely different. You know this.
It's
All right.
equally as bad.
Because
there are no options. To be fair, he had to play Taysom, and I don't have a problem with that. Taysom actually did okay. He wasn't a good quarterback, but he's an incredible football player, so we were in most of those games.
Right.
Creativity does not mean winning.
No, I'm not saying it does.
No one told you that.
I'm not saying it does.
He didn't say that.
All I'm saying is,
What would you have done? What would you wanted to see out of Carmichael with Dalton? You want Dalton throwing it 50 times?
just
No,
like we
we
talked. Well,
want
no,
creativity.
look, just
What?
like just
Tell me.
listen to me. Just like we talked about with Roman on last episode, he thought their defense had so many turnovers and had such success compared to the current Dennis Allen defense. Now, like that again, different topic, different pod,
Different players.
Different players. But it's the element of uncertainty. Okay, it's about giving yourself a chance. I'm not saying that if Pete Carmichael rolls out 3 different formations with a total of 12 different offensive skill players coming in and out, that automatically means we're going to get a first down versus a 3 and out. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that it at least gives us a better chance to keep the defense guessing than if we're taking bad players and running a fucking I formation every single time.
Agreed.
Like that.
Real quick.
I think that's 101.
To win the seam route to Taysom, if Taysom catches that, Carmichael's a genius. If Peyton runs that play, He's a genius because Taysom was wide open. It bounces off his face. We're criticizing him for player failures this year.
I don't think it's an. I don't think it's an.
Ingram running out of bounds 1 yard short, fumbling inside the goal line. Kamara fumbling in the Carolina game. That's coaching.
No, you're misunderstanding. No one is saying all of the fault is on Carmichael.
I'm just looking for examples.
The players should bear the majority of the brunt of the fault because they were bad.
Well, we're talking creativity. Drops. Creativity is a seam route freeing up Taysom wide open in the seam when that is not a play you would call on a short yardage play.
I told you this when it happened. It was a stupid play. He's never going to catch it.
It's
creative.
To kind of, I think
you're missing the point.
This is another topic we could go on for another fucking hour about. All I say, we're looking. The biggest thing with what you and I are saying right now, Nick, is that we're looking at it from two completely different ends of the spectrum. You're going ends justifying means. I'm going means justifying ends. Like, I'm saying, let's just give ourselves a chance. You're looking at the results and coming back.
I'm saying
neither way is incorrect.
A horrible set of players has overcome the winning aspect.
Again, I'm not talking about the result. I'm talking.
You just want it to be more fun.
No, giving yourself
put an effort into it.
They were trying to win.
What gives your when
you have a bad offense, you play conservative.
We'll put it this way.
That's smart.
Carmichael did not look like a guy who coached with Sean Payton for the last 15 or 16 years.
He did.
Carmichael is not Sean Payton. Fact. We all know that. Why do we think he's Sean Payton?
We didn't say he was, but the point is he didn't look like a guy who worked directly with an offensive genius like Payton.
Well, it might actually make some sense why,
Give me some examples.
Well, let me just say this.
He just gave you one.
Because look, we can.
The guy came out and lined up in the I formation every play on first down.
That's not fact. We need to put false.
Okay.
This is something like we can literally spend another hour on this. So all I'm saying, and let's just hypothetically, and Roman's not here, so we can answer hypotheticals. But let's take the Saints out of this. Any team, if you know that you have the 32nd ranked offense in the league, okay, due to injury, due to no fault of your own, and you even have the best.
It wasn't that, by the way. Okay,
I know, but
keep going.
Follow me here.
Let him finish the thought.
Well, don't make stuff up. It's not factual.
I just said it's a hypothetical.
You said hypothetical.
Hypothetical for the Saints.
I said take the Saints out of it.
You know what hypothetical means, right?
Yes, I'm fully aware.
Let's start over.
But why are we making a hypothetical that has nothing to do with the Saints?
Because it not proves, but it's what I'm trying to... It's not.
You're comparing it to a 32nd.
It's what I'm trying to say is that if you have the 32nd ranked offense in the league, you are at a disadvantage over every other team you could possibly play. What gives you, and I'm not talking about results of last season or seam routes or individual plays. What gives you a better chance of success from an offensive standpoint? Is it lining up in vanilla base offensive formation every time, which is not what Sean Payton did?
It's not what we did last year.
Let me finish. Or is it running multiple sets and doing what Sean Payton did, sending guys in, sending guys out?
So pause. We're doing a hypothetical, but you're saying the Saints weren't running multiple sets last year. That's what you're saying? That's false.
Not to the degree that Sean Payton did.
It's false. He's not Sean Payton. He should never try and be Sean Payton. Also, you would go aggressive with Andy Dalton when you have a top... What would we finish? 6th in defense?
I don't think
Where did we finish? Or would you lean on your defense? If you have a good defense and a terrible offense, what would you do as a head coach?
Well, whatever the hell we did not do last year, because I don't think we made the playoffs.
We should have. If Ingram doesn't run out of a yard, we should have.
Now we're back to Jim Mora. Okay. Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Look, it's a dumb philosophy to say we should be creative.
We clearly should have done something different last year because it didn't work, and we were vanilla as shit.
You're blaming it all on coaching. Watch the games.
Well, who the hell else?
No one's blaming it all on coaching.
You're saying we didn't make the playoffs. Did the coaches put the players in position to win multiple games that we did not win? 100%. 100%. Tampa game was a slam dunk win. Slam dunk. That game was over.
Yeah, except it wasn't. So.
Well, yeah. Mark Ingram fell a yard short.
That's, again, another... If you lose a game by one play, did the coaches really put you in position to win the game?
Is the game over if he doesn't do that?
Potentially, yes.
100%. It's 100%.
Well,
it's a
100%.
first down.
It's
a minute and a half off the clock. There's no time to do what happened. It's Definitively, we would have had a fumble, a kneel down.
But I mean, there's winning.
Okay.
There's putting yourself in a position.
They
to
scored
win,
with 7 seconds left.
winning despite yourself. The other team making mistakes. That's a
Okay,
complicated
look, you can
issue.
make all the excuses you want. If you think it's a good
just different
idea
scenarios.
to run a creative offense through Andy Dalton, I don't know what to say. That's just
Andy Dalton's a
maybe-
professional quarterback. Yes,
He's
you should
barely-
be trying to be creative with it.
Yeah, he's not in high school. I mean,
Yeah, you don't line up and
so,
run-
So is
run-
it better to just do a reverse?
Give me some more Andy Dalton. Give me some more.
Is it
Let's
better
go.
to do a 3-step drop every time and throw a 5-yard slant
It's
that's
not
either
what
going
they
to be
did.
dropped by
It's not what they
Shaheed
did.
or a lot?
It's not what they did.
All right, look,
It's not what they did.
It wasn't creative.
It was. It was downfield, in the seam, players dropping, corner route to Taysom, dropped off his
So-
face in the end zone. We've got Juwan Johnson tipping a ball up in the end zone.
So the
We've
three of
got
us
Marcus
apparently
Callaway
watched different
on a
games this
deep
past year.
crosser in the 2-minute drill, popping it up in the air in Arizona.
Oh, wait, I
runs back for
forgot.
a
You're
touchdown.
right. I was exhilarated by the Saints offense in 2022.
You shouldn't have been.
I forgot.
And we never should have been exhilarating. We had no players.
We were
We
exhilarating
had
under
no
Sean
coaching
Payton.
either.
We
had
were,
no
we,
play-
were, we were exhilarating the year before? Really? That was exhilarating?
Under Sean Payton?
How do Ian Book look to you? Creative? That looked good?
Here's the
Taysom
reality.
looked good that year?
Here's the reality.
It was a
Yeah.
bottom offense, dude, with
Here-
Peyton. It was
Hey,
terrible.
Here's the reality. It's okay for
I'll give
both
you
of
that.
these
That
things to
year
be
sucked,
true.
yeah.
The coaches were bad. The players were worse. That's the reality on offense last year.
Yeah.
There were injuries all over the place.
The offense
players,
was
the players
horrendous.
were not good, and the coaches were not good.
Last year was a miscalculation.
It's possible for all three of
on
these
offense.
things to be true, and they were all true if you watched any of the games.
Sure. Okay.
My only point to the whole thing is that you cannot judge a coaching staff based on that season. It's not fair. It's not even realistic. Any coach would be given a pass for that year. Now, if he fails this year and we're healthy, absolutely you can go after him. You can fire him tomorrow. If he has
They should have fired him this year.
No, they shouldn't have.
Yeah, they should
I
have.
don't
He
think they
was
should have
awful.
fired
No.
him. The
You
continuity.
don't give a coach 1 year. That's especially when it
Carmichael's
looks like
been here
that.
15 plus years.
He also produced the same level of defense that he's produced over the last few years.
Same level of defense.
Yeah.
Carmichael.
Carmichael.
No. Allen. I'm saying
I
Allen.
didn't say Allen. I said
We're just
Carmichael.
making sure.
Oh,
you're
you didn't
talking
want to
about
fire Allen too?
I did.
Okay.
Actually, but I said
You wanted
Carmichael
to
in this
clean house.
discussion.
I'm saying you can't clean house. Head coach
No,
needs to be
I've
given.
been on record with you on this. I said I understand giving Dennis Allen a year or two. I understand it. I don't like it because I don't think he's the coach, but I understand
and
completely
he might
giving
not
him a year
be,
or two.
but you have to at least give him a year where things are more normal.
Okay, but
Injury
here's
levels.
the deal. No one's arguing that. No one said anything about Dennis Allen. We're not talking about Dennis Allen. We're talking about the guy who's been in his position for 15 plus years. The guy who was fucking about as creative as a 2-year-old kid this past year.
Hey, but we will talk about Dennis Allen on the
had-
next episode when
that's
we
a
break
good
down
segue.
the
He had no
defense.
players. He had no players. So I'm on the same premise as you can't judge Allen this year. You can't judge Carmichael because he had no players. Give a creative person like that. Sean Payton had players. He
Listen.
had a top 10 quarterback of all time. Give him players. If he fails, then you can crucify him. If he has no players, what are you going to do?
I'm going to say something shocking right now.
You hate Carmichael.
I agree with Nick on one thing. And he's right about the fact that I do think we have to see what Carmichael does this year. Because if he does the same shit,
He's
we
fired.
might disagree on whether
fired.
last year was good shit or bad shit or creative or not creative.
He won't be fired.
We do disagree. We just listen to the last 30
If-
minutes of this podcast. But what I'm saying is if he does the same shit this year,
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
He's gone. 100%.
He won't be gone, though, because you've said this a million times
He
yourself.
won't. I agree with you. He won't, but he
won't
should. With this roster,
he's going to go talk to Gail himself.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
"This guy-
He'll be here as long as he
We've been
wants to.
friends for 15
Gail's going
years.
to say, "Oh, honey, was it that bad?"
100%. That's what'll happen. I agree with you on that.
Craig Amon's the Archbishop's going to be in the room.
But I will be the first to say if they produce the same level of offense this year with this set of players, he should be gone.
Do you
the
give him a
following-
pass if we are equally unhealthy this year?
No. No.
To Nick.
Injuries happen to every
Equally
team.
unhealthy?
To Nick, if we are equally unhealthy
No.
this year as we were last year, do you give Carmichael a pass to give him a year 3?
It would depend what it looked like.
Exactly like last year.
Then yeah, I would.
You give him a pass.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
I'll put it this way. I would understand not firing him. They won't fire him either way.
They
we
won't
know
fire him.
that. We know that. I'm just saying, if you have no players,
Well, it's a good thing we
this
signed.
league is so skilled, dude. It's so skilled. The margins are so small. We were losing one score game after one score game after one score game.
That's true.
I'm not
True.
gonna say it's his fault. I don't know if it's his fault. If the whole offense gets hurt again, offensive line issues, skill player issues, quarterback issues across the board,
yeah.
I can't say I wouldn't give him another chance. What I'll say is if we have injured receivers and it's depleted again, just like last year, but our offensive line is healthy, running backs are healthy, quarterback's healthy, no, I wouldn't give him a pass.
Okay.
He needs to work around that. If every level of the offense is hurt again, I can't say definitively I wouldn't give him another chance.
If a guy whose last name rhymes with Hockmorton comes in,
You don't want to see Throckmorton. I'm just saying, it's hard to say that. You're not winning in the NFL without players because the NFL is so competitive now. And we were in every game but one, in my opinion. The Baltimore game was an embarrassment. By all accounts, it was terrible on offense.
that was a Lamar clinic.
Yeah, it was terrible on defense. It was bad all around. Every other game in the fourth quarter, we were all still watching, thinking we had a shot. Yeah. So I'm not going to throw him completely under the bus. I just won't do it. Now, again, if everyone's healthy this year and he has that same performance, I'll be the first to say he needs to get the hell out of here.
And here's
instantly.
Look, just because we were in every game doesn't mean it was competitive. Because that last game of the year is the perfect example of that. What did Sam Darnold have? Like 40 yards passing, and they freaking beat us.
Oh God, that was
again. If we don't miss the field goals, it's
but
over.
That's not winning football. Come on.
That was awful.
Is this a good? No, we can't segue to special teams. We should segue because it's a perfect segue.
I think
to
special teams takes all of 30 seconds, if that. Fucking
replace
horrible.
everyone.
Like burn it down.
Yeah, honestly, let's just go ahead and include special teams in this.
Okay. How many games did they cost us this year?
A lot.
A lot.
And look, we the three of us don't agree on much, but we can all agree on two things. A, Brock Bowers is the best player in college football.
Yeah.
He would look great in black and gold.
Yep.
That's a weird pivot. Okay.
It is, and then B.
It's one of the things we agree on. So
I'm just throwing it out there.
we're reaching deep here, Nick.
But B is special teams last year were a fucking atrocity.
It's the worst. It's the worst since the year Lutz had like 7 kicks blocked or whatever it
Dude,
was.
Lutz
year was...
Lutz was terrible. The punter, I'm sorry, with the exception
Blake
of the
was
game
terrible.
in London where Lutz almost nailed the 2 60-yard field goals.
But again, could have tied it if he hit the other one and it hit the crossbar. Or hit the
He almost had the
upright,
greatest kicker game ever.
It would have been.
It would have been. But then
almost.
he was atrocious the rest of the year. And then we had, what was his name, Gillikin, who looked amazing the year before and just fell off a cliff last year.
Every time we needed a big punt to pin him to win a game, he kicked a 25-yard punt.
Yeah.
Literally every time. There were 3 games where we could have pinned them back and they would have had to go like 70 yards on the defense.
That's a good
Instead, they had to
point.
go 15.
Yeah.
And
And
it
then
was
the return
amazing.
game. The return game was awful.
Terrible.
Deontay Hardy was terrible when he played. Rashid Shaheed, he didn't bust anything big. And then coverage. Coverage was an atrocity. Like special teams as a whole, like just crumple it up, throw it in the trash can, set it on fire, and
was
just
bad.
get rid of it.
It was very bad. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and I'm usually a guy that tries to, despite my condemnation of last year's offense, I usually do try to find silver linings in any kind of Saints position group.
No one was good.
You heard that silence? Yeah,
No.
no, there was none.
Nobody was good.
So this year in training camp, I'm looking forward to the Australian guy that's all tatted up, Lou Headley. Come on in, take
Max is
Gillikin's
going to
job.
be either the first or last guy at the Saints open training camp practices, just like yelling at the specialists.
Oh,
He's
man.
gonna
Give me,
be like,
Well,
give
that's
me,
his forte, honestly. He likes to
give
torment.
me the kicker, Alex Cavedo. Give me anybody new on special teams, and I'm fine with it.
Well, the problem is this. Both of those guys have shown to be elite. So do they regain their form? Was it an anomaly or are they just done? Lutz was elite. Gillikin was
More than
elite.
2 years ago, though, which
True.
was.
And he had the injury. So
And
you
he's
got
making a lot of money.
it sucks to.
I couldn't believe we made him the second highest paid kicker to Tucker when we did. They did.
I couldn't believe
it hasn't
when,
worked out.
I couldn't believe when he made the damn roster. I mean, when Peyton said, "Best damn kicker workout I've ever seen," and like he was the guy from Georgia State, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
how far back it was.
No, Peyton said
we
he
had
was going to be the best kicker in Saints history.
and
there's a Hall of Famer in
we
our
had
history.
2 veterans in the building, and who kicked all preseason, cuts both of them, brings in a guy who didn't even wear the uniform all preseason, and he's the guy we rely on. And then he turned out amazing for as long as he did.
He
Until
Yeah, but
wasn't.
look, it's a what have
But-
you done for me lately league, and
Yeah.
he hasn't done shit in 2 years.
That's what.
But,
That's like what Bobby Abear said. What you done for me lately? On WWE.
Hey, it's true, though.
Yeah, it's true.
I agree, except if we remember from a kicker standpoint, kickers are quirky as shit. Mason Crosby missed like 12 field goals.
I mean, look what happened to Ray Finkel.
Yeah, Ray Finkel, exactly.
Who did he? Ray Finkel. Did he play last year?
It's been a while.
He's famous.
Did he?
But Mason Crosby
He was mid-nineties.
rebounded and became an elite kicker after that year for multiple years after that. So is it an anomaly or is it not? We have to figure that out in preseason.
Einhorn.
If he looks anywhere near what he did last year, then they got to move on. You got to find. You
Just
got to
like
replace
Pete.
him.
I mean, the biggest thing is with the cap situation that it is.
What's his number that we get out of in the?
This is the last year of his contract.
But
for
what's
Lutz?
the
I want
dead?
to say it's about four or 5 million.
Oh, he's.
It's
Dead
a
money?
decent amount, man.
No, we owe him $5 million. But is it? What's the dead money on it? We
I
can
don't
get
think
out
there's
of.
any. This is the last year of his deal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if it's the last
So,
year.
Yeah, then you really got to consider it.
That's my point. Like it's shit or get off the pot time, and yeah, this might be the time to move on. So we'll see.
He was. I'm gonna sound like Nick now. Was he injured last year?
The year before, he was coming off an injury. So that's why I'm saying, if he's back to old Lutz, you want him on your roster.
Right.
If he's not, then you've got to move on immediately.
We need Big Nut Lutz back, not Will.
Yeah. But it's a guy who, what was it, a 62-yarder and then almost a second 62-yarder in the
yeah.
same game. That's the potential,
Yeah.
which doesn't exist a lot in the league still.
Well, someone retweeted the. I don't know what the occasion was, but they retweeted that game opener. Season opener of Saints versus Texans when the Texans had Deshaun. It was in the dome. and
And they got
back
ahead of
I
us.
remember why. I forgot how down to the wire that game really was. I remember looking at the
We
clock.
were down the whole game.
Rewatching that and seeing the clock and seeing how far down we were, I was like, wait, that's what the clock was at before we actually won? And Lutz hit the 58-yarder. Big Nuts Lutz at that time.
You talking about the London game?
No, the
No,
game,
way back,
home
the
opener
Texans,
in the
opening day.
dome.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that was incredible. But does that guy still exist? I don't know.
So I agree. So like, if he doesn't show that to like for sure in training camp and preseason, then you move on. You take the rookie, you cut the money, you go find somebody who can help the team. But he was an elite player, so you wouldn't have cut him mid-season.
No.
Nah, you can't do that.
It got worse and worse and worse for us. And culmination was the last game of the season where he couldn't hit the side of a barn. It was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we solved a lot of the world's problems once again.
Except quarterback, we didn't even talk about it.
I think quarterback's fine in Carr's hands.
We know where we're at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Same thing with running back.
Carr,
You know.
Hayner. There's things to talk about there, but I think like those particular groups are the ones where we're not nearly as concerned or have as many potential issues as the other ones.
My only concerns on
We didn't talk
offense.
about O-line really.
Well, my only concerns on offense
Health.
are health.
Health.
That's
Yeah.
health. That's it.
If
If
it's
the
a
offensive
healthy
line
offense-
stays healthy, we're fine.
We'll end it with this. If healthy, if it isn't a top 10 offense, if healthy, in every skill set, mostly healthy, miss a game or two here, fine. Mostly healthy, no season-ending injuries. If it's not a top 10, 12 offense in the league, then you can question Carmichael and talk about getting him out of here. Because it is that level skill offense. The offensive line's great if healthy. Quarterback is we can all debate where he's at, but he's definitely a top half quarterback. Receivers is definitely a top 10 level of players on our receiving core. Tight end's been fixed. It's on Carmichael to make that work. If they're healthy and they're not a top 10 or 12, then it's on him 100%.
I mean, my expectations are higher. You're saying 10 to 12. I'm saying 5 to 8. That talent on that offense, it's loaded.
Yeah.
If the offensive line can just stay healthy, there is no reason for that offense not to be top 5.
But
I'll
if it's
say, I'll say this, I think the biggest concern for me on the offense is the offensive line. Yes, they have to stay healthy, but I think we're so used to going back to the old days where we were Pro Bowlers at the offensive line. We definitely have our great, Ramczyk, no question.
McCoy.
Pete is McCoy.
McCoy's your
but,
top guy.
It's
I
Ramczyk
think-
and McCoy anchoring that
I
thing.
think
but what's Penning?
Right.
There's a lot of good things going.
Back in the good old days, it was like if all 5 were healthy, that meant like you had a potentially like all Pro Bowl line, if not second team all pro. Now, if they're all healthy, that means like as a whole, nothing against Ramczyk, nothing against McCoy, but as a whole, they're kind of like ranked 15th. Not saying we need a whole lot more than that given our skill set, but that I do still have some concern about that skill group. Some of them need to overachieve. Penny needs to stay healthy. But again, I agree with you all. I mean, like
I think we can all agree Pete is in decline. Ruiz is on the way up. McCoy is what he is. Like Max said, he's an anchor. Ramczyk, if healthy, is still an anchor. And then what is Penning? Penning's a first-round pick. That's a line that's set up to be successful.
Yeah.
Now, again, health, once again, for the Saints, health. But
they can do what they need to do, especially now that we have a QB who also, if he stays healthy, is a QB that gets the ball out a hell of a lot faster than Jameis did.
Let's point out that he's an Iron Man, though. He's played almost every game of his career.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying that, like...
That's a good... That gives us a good feeling that we might have a guy that's actually in there for the
best offensive in the league. Best offenses in the league have QBs who get that ball out quick. Well, play, but they don't pat the ball with their hands. It's if the 2.5 second clock comes up, the ball's out.
All right. So next episode, we're going to get into the defense post draft and where we stand.
Yeah, we'll continue the state of the Saints. Defense next up. We definitely hit every point on the offense. So thanks again for listening to another episode of the 28-3 podcast.
What a comeback!